Hello and welcome back to Crew Call with the Scooters. Today's guest is Angela Garcia, who is the Executive Director of Global Links. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for the invitation. I love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you guys are busy, I'm sure, right now as an organization. I'm sure you're probably always busy, but I'm sure it's been a crazy year for you.
It has been a record-setting year, yes.
I believe it. I believe it. So, why don't you let's first talk about, for people who don't know, what is Global Links?
So Global Links is a nonprofit organization that was founded here in Pittsburgh by three women from Pittsburgh in 1989, and we work to improve health for vulnerable communities. We work in partnership with the World Health Organization in Latin America and the Caribbean to provide materials, whether it be medical supplies, medical furnishings, medical equipment, to hospitals, health clinics, maternity homes, senior care homes in some of the most rural, isolated, low resource communities in these countries. And we work in partnership with the public health sector in those countries to match up. So they provide the building and the staffing, and we come in and provide the equipment. And the beautiful thing is, all of that equipment was surplus from our region's healthcare facilities, hospitals, senior care. So things that would have been maybe replaced during a remodeling or closing a unit. And so we capture over 250 to 300 tons of
Oh my God.
surplus product every year. And then about 5 years ago, we started a domestic program. So doing very similar work, but providing these materials to local nonprofits, free and charitable clinics, who are also caring for our most vulnerable neighbors. And maybe their clients or patients can't afford medical equipment, home medical equipment, or home care
Mhm.
supplies. So we provide it to them so that these folks don't have to go without. And so ultimately that is our mission in a very brief nutshell. There's a lot of fun details in between, but that's what we were founded to do. And last year, well, it it
Yes.
it called to us. So I guess if I could, because the pandemic, we recognized it as, as a disaster situation. So
Mhm.
Global Links works in very poor communities, and oftentimes these communities are hit by natural disasters, hurricanes, tropical
Mhm.
storms, mudslides, and we've had 30 years of experience doing
Mhm.
that. There are we there's a trend, right? What happens is the supply chain breaks down, logistics break down, whether it was hit by,
Right, right.
the hurricane or an earthquake. And that's exactly what happened, but it happened on a global scale because then there's a demand for whatever is needed to manage, sort of needs. And we said, well, we have a few years of experience helping folks through disaster recovery, and this is a public health crisis. So it meets our mission to help provide medical materials to mitigate a public health crisis.
Mhm.
So we put ourselves forth to the community as a solution to help our nonprofit sector and our most vulnerable neighbors in southwestern PA by acting as their supply chain. So we built partnerships with local makers, local manufacturers, local university, and raised the funding from our foundation and corporate community, and then put our 58,000 square foot warehouse and logistics team and inventory management and distribution to work distributing the masks, the face shields, the PPE. We're still in response mode, supporting all of our childcare facilities in Allegheny County with the disinfectant and the gloves and a lot of the supplies that if they would have had to buy them on their own, they would have paid, retail costs or online, and it was hard to find many of these things. So by buying in bulk and bringing in tractor trailer loads to our warehouse and then distributing over time, we were able to save the community considerable dollars so they could put those to use in serving, their clients and our neighbors that need
Mhm.
all types of other services and support right now. So last year was a really record-breaking year for us, but we really felt honored and sort of called to put that to use. So our international programs remain strong. We, right now, we're working in 5 countries, um,
Mhm.
but our domestic program went from having 30 local nonprofit partners to by the end of last year, we had worked with over 400.
Oh my
And that
gosh.
rate, yeah,
Wow, that's a huge bump in percentage on that. Wow.
and that was, our free and charitable clinics, our local shelters, so the homeless shelters, women's shelters, domestic violence shelters, our senior care facilities, low income housing for seniors, um, and then a lot of community organizations that support the refugee and immigrant community. And it was just one thing after another. We just continued to build partnerships and keep reaching out to where the greatest need was. So that's where we got to the childcare sector. We were approached by a county agency and made that connection. So we've been their delivery service and have formed great partners to make that all happen smoothly. So.
Wow, and that's incredible. You brought up something. I was going to ask about your warehouse because, first of all, I can't even imagine how many moving parts there are to this. So, did you see pretty much things almost come into the warehouse and then instantaneously leave? And like, do you have like a workforce? Is it volunteers who help do that? How do you plan all of
Oh, right, you got it. There's a lot of
that?
moving parts.
Yeah,
So, on a normal day, pre-COVID,
yeah.
all that surplus that comes into our facility, you know, are sorted and packed by volunteers,
Okay.
supervised by our paid staff. And normally, our volunteer center is hopping with activity 5 days a week, several shifts a day. We welcome volunteers from, local schools, colleges, corporate groups, faith-based groups. We do family volunteer days for families with young children around the holidays, retirees, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We have programs. It's just, it's really a segment of a
Yeah.
large segment of our community comes in, spends 2 hours, a 2 hour shift with us, and really has an opportunity to convert our region surplus into life saving and life improving donations. But then COVID happened, and we had to close our volunteer center for obvious reasons. It remains closed still a year later. But our 20-person staff. So we do have a professional warehouse and drivers and
Mhm.
program managers and inventory managers.
Mm.
We were able to keep them all fully employed. And they were working a little bit of overtime last year, shall we
Oh,
say, because this was a huge undertaking. And but we have an amazingly compassionate and committed team, and we're actually growing our team now since last year really provided us some new opportunities. So we are currently hiring for pretty much all positions.
that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
that opportunity.
yeah,
And you've been executive director for the past 3 years, but you've worked with Global Links for 20, correct?
that is correct.
And yeah,
I'm a Pittsburgh boomerang,
yeah,
so I grew up here in the South Hills. Left when I was 17 and came back when I got married, and really it was a really different city. Over the 90s, a lot had changed, and I moved back here the very end of 2000. And we really weren't planning on staying in Pittsburgh, but I found this great job that put a lot of my life
yeah,
experiences. I had been living and working and volunteering abroad in different countries, um, and and I'd worked with a medical brigade in rural Mexico, and worked with women's education and literacy programming, as well as health and international development projects. And I worked in senior care. And I find this organization that does a little bit of all of that, and they have a job opening. So I joined Global Links, working for one of the three founders who had remained as executive director, and grew with the organization over years. And whenever the last remaining founder retired, or planned to retire, I applied for the job and became executive director 3 years ago. And so, I guess I proved my mettle, because nothing like first year of roller coaster, second year of I think I got this, and then third year of a global pandemic,
yeah.
right? Like
Oh,
that's total normal
training.
career
Yeah,
progression.
you couldn't beat that training if you tried, I don't think.
No, so that's why we're really excited about the growth of just a lot of the new opportunities we have, and the new partners we've made, working with everyone from our local diaper bank to our local food bank to access transport vans have been an amazing partner, and the list really goes on. I feel bad not mentioning all, 400
Right.
plus all the supporters that make it
Right.
possible. But yeah, proud to be
Wow.
born and raised here in Pittsburgh, both as an organization and as an individual.
Absolutely. We love it. Pittsburgh natives all around. And as
Yep.
you mentioned, you've done work in this field for pretty much your entire career and going internationally and working with, I'm sure you've seen, like you said, disasters from hurricanes to earthquakes to maybe, I don't know, in terms of what you've seen, have you seen anything like COVID on like how you've had to adapt and change? Was there any another time where you had to be like, wow, this is really shifting?
That's a really great question because I do think our team was able to be so responsive
Mhm.
because there was this sort of familiarity that it's an adrenaline, right? It's very, very fast at the beginning. And so we were able to once, our staff and board got together in mid-March, sort of anticipation, and had to make some really important decisions. What if, when our warehouse is empty, right? When we donate everything, because this is such a huge crisis globally, locally, what will that mean for the organization? And what are the limits of how can we respond? And how do we determine who we can help and who we can't?
Mhm.
Because, in the grand scheme of things, we can't help everybody.
Right.
Um, so we decided March 15th,
Mhm.
here were the parameters, and we're going to go for as much as we can do, even if that meant that our warehouse would be empty by the end of the year, which it was far from empty. It just we just continued to fill it, and materials, like you said, just continue to go out. We have donations leaving our dock internationally and domestically every single week, like nonstop since last year. So what it reminded me of, the closest, because there's nothing really to this scale, but it was a series of three events. One was a double hurricane, Hurricane Sandy, that actually, yes, it was devastating here in the United States, but it was also devastating in the Caribbean, and it destroyed hospitals in some of our partner countries. And because we had partnerships in place there weren't a lot of places for those countries to turn to help rebuild their healthcare infrastructure and services. So we worked on that, and just in the midst of everybody seeing how devastating Sandy was, um, that was that was something similar. And also the Haiti earthquake, which everyone could visibly feel, the magnitude of that by the images, what media shared. And, that happened right at the beginning of January. And for probably the first 6 months of our response, because we work in Haiti and we had partners in Haiti, we had hospitals and healthcare partners, and we really it just turned on a dime, and it became a lot of outreach. It was our Help Haiti Heal campaign,
Mhm.
and a lot of people really understood that need for the crutches and the walkers and the prosthetic limbs. And we probably did our biggest community outreach campaign and marketing campaign. And we had people contacting us wanting to donate crutches from all over the country.
Wow.
I
Wow.
mean, so that in terms of having to raise funds, having to recruit materials, right? To recruit the right materials, and then to plan all the logistics to get it to our partners internationally. There's a lot of logistics planning. I think our team and definitely myself, we learned a few things because I burned the candle at both ends, that
I'm
whole
sure I can
response.
imagine.
And on month 9, I was like, done. Like like I don't have it. So we were able to really we planned intentional staff breaks last year, outdoor, physically spaced picnics, just as bonus long weekends, and really tried to keep our whole team, you know, e energized and fueled, and, because without them, we can't do the work.
Right.
It's and so, that's probably the most similar, but it has been an experience like no other.
No, I can imagine. We talk about that too. I mean, so many people just were in working around the clock and which is good, but in a way, it's like you have to have that time to decompress and, take a moment, breathe, figure out, okay, strategically, what do you need to do? It's easy to, I'm sure, especially in your field, to just run and gun, from morning to night, because there's a million things to do. So the other thing I wanted to mention, and we talked briefly before, but you talked about a second part of the business that was interesting as well. So you said that part of it, you also do props for commercials, film,
Yeah.
television shows as well.
So, one of the fun things that actually we started doing years ago, one of our hospital partners had been approached. This is, well, probably over a decade ago, right? It's
Mhm.
over 15 years because we were in our old facility. We're currently in Green Tree, right alongside the Parkway West,
Yeah,
big solar array on the roof, so
yeah.
everyone can wave when they go by. It's back in 2009 or 8 when really the movie scene and
Mhm.
filming movies in Pittsburgh was really picking up. Um, there was going to be a medical scene. I don't remember if it was a doctor's office or a hospital room in one of the local productions, and they had approached one of the hospitals we worked with and asked if they could rent, the hospital bed and the
Right,
pretty much everything in the room. And the
yeah,
hospital's like, we can't give away our stuff that we have patients using. But hey, why don't you talk to Global Links? They get our surplus, and from then on, we became the local production company's prop rental. So anyone filming, whether it's a commercial, the TV series, the Netflix TV series,
yes.
the movies, we have a whole list of all the movies filmed in Pittsburgh that had Global Links surplus medical supplies in them, and
That's
they
incredible.
they really range. And pretty much any of the big productions have at least one medical scene. It's just
Yeah, that's
common.
true.
So they by renting those props, it helps us earn income to support our programs, and it's sort of fun at the same time. So
That's a good,
anybody
yeah, I
doing
love that.
production can rent stuff
Yeah,
from
look,
us.
I know who I'm calling. I know who I'm calling if I need something. So, well, let me
Yeah,
ask you this, as first of all, I could talk to you all day. So, but let me ask you this. So now we're, 2021, we're still, it's still very, pandemic times, but what do you see for the future? What do you want for the future of Global Links?
sure. And really coming off of last year, uh, we saw so many new opportunities. So it was like, I mean, it was social entrepreneurism, right? We had to experiment very quickly, had to work with new people very quickly. And some of those didn't necessarily work out the way we anticipated. And others were like, wow, why weren't we working together before this? We're able to do so much together, really putting our strengths together because we bring different skill sets. We bring different, work, some. And we really had to, my staff had to sort of pull me back when we were doing our strategic planning for the next couple of years, and it's like we can't roll out all these new partnerships, right? To do them well, when we partner, it's literally sit down planning meetings, teams together. What does this look like? So a lot of those is we will be building on the work locally,
Mm,
to help bridge those gaps where people are suffering lack of mobility, lack of independent living, lack of dignified health care. And if we can provide the materials that they are currently doing without, whether that's a breathing machine, we're an air quality problem area,
right,
and
absolutely.
many people don't realize you only get one asthma breathing machine every 5 years, all insurance companies. Well, what if that breaks? Particularly when it's a child and, the parents or maybe it's the different caregivers, they have different homes that the
Mhm.
child is in. You only have one. And this was my own experience with my son when he was little, and you have to remember to take that to the daycare, and then you have to remember to take it over to grandma's house. And that's something, we have a program called Breathe Hope that we're able to provide those machines at very low cost, all refurbished, new masks, because to us a family doesn't need to make those sacrifices that can risk then an
Mhm.
asthma attack that ends up being a hospital visit, right?
Right.
So filling gaps like that to um, there's so many. We're currently working on addressing the many of the needs for things that are considered essentials. Personal care products, toothpaste, toothbrushes, soap, shampoo, deodorant, diapers, adult incontinence products. None
Mhm.
of those are covered by food stamps or government assistance programs. So if you are one of the so many that are unemployed, and you have to make a choice between, do we get soap and toothpaste, or do we pay the rent, or do we pay our utilities? And that's just, I mean, it's a broken system. But if we can continue to engage our community in, you know, donating these products, helping build these kits with us, that's what we are looking at, all different ways that we can support and keep the nonprofit sector as strong as possible, so that so many of our neighbors don't fall through the cracks, that don't have to make uh, difficult choices and suffer in terms of their quality of life or their
Mhm.
dignity. Um, so that's one. Our international programs, will continue to remain strong. We continue to build on our work with the World Health Organization as public health specialists, and we look forward to reopening our volunteer
I
center.
was going to ask about.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest hole in our world right now, because it's so quiet. And we normally welcome, on a pre-COVID year, 3,000 to 4,000 volunteers come through our center every year. Um, the the beautiful thing is, we experiment with some outdoor, physically distanced events last year, community engagement events. Working with the Western Pennsylvania Diaper Bank, we held public diaper distributions, very similar to the food distributions, and we are working to set those up again this year, because diapers are very, very expensive.
Yeah, I see.
And when families don't have diapers, there's the health and infection risk for the child, but it's also been documented that crying baby wet diaper can actually provoke domestic violence. So there's a couple different reasons to really help keep babies dry, and we're going to work to do those large scale events and help our community as much as possible. But it also allows 40 to 45 people to volunteer with us for each event.
Oh, I
So
love that. That's incredible.
So,
Wow.
just a great example of Pittsburghers who love to give back and, collaborate. And, we see it as a really way to build our safety net, make it stronger, and engage everyone in our work. There's really an opportunity, whether you have home care surplus to donate, due to a treatment that's ended, or, the loss of someone. We have contact free drop off, or financial support, or follow us on social media, or share our story, or get involved with us, or take a virtual tour, or apply for one of our open jobs.
Absolutely. And we will do that. We will put your website on this interview. We can't thank you enough for being here today. You're doing incredible work. Can't wait to see what's next. And thank you so much again. And
Thank
we,
you for the invitation. A real
yeah,
pleasure.
absolutely. Have a great day.
You too.